Hey, this is Schuyler from themixingprocess.com, and in this video I want to teach you about how to use sends and returns in the mixing process. Back in analog days, the mixers in those days didn't have the capacity to do all the processing internally that we can do with digital these days. So the way they would do that, if you wanted to process a signal, say you wanted to use a compressor on a channel, the way you do that is by a send. You would send a copy of that signal over to the compressor outboard unit. It would do its thing, and then it would send that signal back via a return after it has been processed. So that's how it would work, and you'd have to hardwire all that stuff in. Today, we don't have to do that because everything is digital, but it does follow kind of the same principle of how it works. So a send would be a copy of that signal sent somewhere else for processing, and then the return would be that process signal coming back so that we can continue mixing it. So in a DAW setting, it would look something like this. If we've got a track here, we've just got a keys track, and you can see when I play this, you can see the audio coming in on this single track. Now let's say I want to apply some reverb to this. I could either apply a plugin directly on the track, or if I'm going to use that same reverb sound somewhere else, I can use a send, and that's what we're going to do here. So in Reaper, the way you do that is click here. You can just say add a new send, and it gives me the list of tracks here. And the one labeled reverb here is the one I want to send to. It opens up this little window down here. I can control volume, I can mute the send, I can pan it, I can do all kinds of stuff here. But we're actually just going to control it from this volume control right here. So now we've got a send set up, and now you can see when I play it again, you can hear there's reverb on this now, okay? So, and we've also got signal coming in on that keys track, and now we've got it coming in on the reverb track. This is acting as our return right here. So we've got that sending that copy over to the reverb, getting processed, and then it comes out via the return track right here. So that's kind of how that would work. Now, typically, the way I like to mix it is I like to mix the volume on the send and leave the return at Unity wide open. And a lot of times people would get confused. Well, do I mix the return or do I mix the send? Especially on a live console, it's a little bit harder to know which do you do. Well, the reason I would do this is, let's say we've got a bunch of tracks like I have here. I can actually create a send. If I want to apply the same reverb effect to all these tracks, I can apply the same effect by creating a send for each of them, and I can actually mix different levels of reverb in those tracks. So I can mix the sends, and then it all dumps into this reverb return right here. If I start changing and modifying this reverb return right here, it's affecting all of those tracks. So if I only want to affect the reverb amount on one of these, I better go over to the send and work with it and mix it there. So that's kind of how I would do that. Also, another reason why I would leave this at Unity and blend it here is because let's say I wanted to just cut the reverb on one of them, if I were to cut the reverb, maybe just mute this return, not only, like I said before, would it mute all of the reverb for all those tracks, but also it would be a sharp cutoff. Versus if you just mute that send instead, it's going to stop the flow to the reverb, but whatever the reverb is already processing and whatever it's already returning, it's going to finish that and just not process anymore. So all that to say, it's a lot smoother of a transition if you edit and maybe automate and control and mix the sends and leaves the reverb returns wide open. And this is the same for any kind of send. I'm just using a reverb here just as an example. You'd use that for any other effect that you wanted to send a bunch of tracks to. the same way. So that's kind of how we do that. That's how ascend and return works. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If you're new to this whole mixing thing, you're learning how to EQ, compress, balance volume with faders, doing all those different things, I'd encourage you to go to my website, themixingprocess.com. There you're going to find a free guide called the 7-step mix, and it'll walk you through the 7 steps that I take in every single mix. It'll give you a great systematic approach to your mix. It'll teach you how to do each of those different steps and kind of put it all together at the end. I think it'll be really helpful for you if you're trying to learn all this stuff for the first time. But hopefully this video was helpful for you. You can ask me any questions in the comments below, or go to that same website and you can contact me directly through there as well. Hopefully this was helpful for you. We will see you again next time.